Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Council meeting on June 27th, 2022. We are now live on YouTube. I will start with roll call of council. I, Mayor Shantz, am present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Martin.
Present.
Councillor McMillan.
Present.
Councillor Merlihan.
Present.
Councillor Redicott.
Present.
And Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Thank you. As we head into our summer downtime, I'm thinking of the many changes that the world has seen even in the last 6 months. And sometimes I think we're making progress with appreciating that we're all more alike than we are different. And other times I just shake my head. But today I want to focus very briefly on some positives. This June alone, we've spent time learning about and celebrating our Indigenous heritage and the lives of our LGBTQ2S+ neighbors. We have become aware of homelessness in a way that we haven't before. And planning how to care for the environment has taken a prominent place in our future planning for growth and development. And of course, the last couple of years, COVID has taught us ways to live together in a way that respects the health of each individual. Each of these issues reflect a desire to create a better world for our children and grandchildren, and for the other creatures and plants that share the world with us. So let's take a moment to reflect on how we can each contribute positively to our lives together and to those of our friends and neighbors. Join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. The land on which we meet has been here from time immemorial. People have inhabited southern Ontario for about 10,000 years, and we acknowledge the Attawandaron, also called the Neutral People, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee, who lived here when settlers arrived and who share this land with us. May we together learn to care for and respect each other, our flora and fauna, and the land we inhabit together. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, there are no items to come forward from closed. We have minutes from Council of June 6th and Committee of the Whole from June 20th. Are there any errors or omissions? Would someone like to move them? Councillor Shantz and seconded by Councillor Redicott. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have no public meeting. We do have a presentation though, and I would like to invite Fire Chief Dennis Aldous and Deputy Fire Chief Craig Eveson to turn on their videos and give us our presentation. Welcome, Chief and Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our presentation is on the upcoming mandatory certification that's put forth by the province of Ontario. You may remember back in February, we came to council advising you of the mandatory firefighter certification that was proposed by the province to come into effect July the 1st, 2022. At that time, you may remember that the fire department was working with the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs to either overturn or at least have some concessions made. Also at the time, the mayor and CAO were engaged with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and our local MPP in doing the same. All the while, we were working on an implementation plan for when it came into act. After some concessions, the province amended the Fire Protection and Prevention Act to make firefighter certification mandatory in Ontario effective July the 1st, 2020. Since February, we've been working on what this means to the township, what we would need to do to maintain our current level of service, and how our department would react to the legislation. We've investigated our current level of firefighter certification, firefighters currently grandfathered, firefighters working on certification, and firefighters needing certification, and the firefighters in the legacy classification. All those terms and all those areas will be spoken a little bit further in our presentation. Although we investigated the training required to maintain our current level of service and what it would take to offer those at an increased standard from operations level to technical level. As for acceptance, the number of firefighters signing up to upgrade their skills is a good benchmark that this has been the benchmark for this, as we have seen a substantial increase this year from previous years. So we went from having 5 or 6 people up to we're close to 20 for this year trying to upgrade their skills. We also discovered, like many other volunteer fire departments, that coordinating, maintaining, creating lesson plans, and records management is a task in itself, requiring additional manpower. With more firefighters looking to upgrade their skills and more certified courses needed to be offered internally and externally, it's a task that's a little bit more than just for a part-time person. Now our Deputy Eveson will now go through a presentation on certification for you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Chief.
Welcome, Deputy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Okay, there we go. So mandatory firefighter certification, what it means to the Woolwich Fire Department. So these are the governing bodies that are concerned with the mandatory certification. So I'll start on the left of the screen there on the Ontario Fire Marshal. It's the top fire service in Ontario. And I'll explain a little bit more on the next slide what each of them and their role is. The National Fire Protection Agency, that's an international governing body. International Fire Service Congress Accreditation, Fire Service Accreditation Congress, or IFSAC, and Pro Board. Oh, and my apologies, the Township of Woolwich. The Township of Woolwich is responsible for providing the taxpayer with fire protection services, sets the level to be provided, maintains records and equipment for training and emergency services, and must provide fire prevention and education services as per the fire legislation. Ontario Fire Marshal, again, head of the fire service, responsible for setting and maintaining the standards to which we're to follow. They're the lead organization in training, and they're responsible for investigations of large or high profile, large dollar loss rather, incidents. The National Fire Protection Agency, the Nfpa, they're the governing body. They set the standards and best practices for everything in the fire service, including equipment and training. They're responsible for establishing and maintaining certification levels for firefighters and officers. And this is where the Pro Board and International Fire Service Accreditation Congress, or IFSAC, comes in. It's made up of industry stakeholders, and they're the two main accrediting bodies for the fire service. They verify that agencies and organizations are consistently meeting or exceeding any applicable standard that was set out by the National Fire Protection Association, and they're responsible for the OFM's accreditation. So they've said that the OFM is a good organization, and they're worthy of delivering NFPA level courses. So the regulation we're speaking of is Regulation 343-22, and that speaks to firefighter certification. That came from the Ministry of the Solicitor General, who oversees the operation of the Ontario Fire Marshal and emergency management. So what's covered? So the legacy certification, I'm sure if you've been on council for some time, you've remembered the grandfathering, which was the last round when the province attempted this the first time. The difference being is the legacy certification is going to be valid in Ontario only, whereas the grandfathering was endorsed by the NFPA. So it was an international certificate that people were, or international equivalency that people were given during grandfathering. This time around, the NFPA opted out of it, but the OFM said if your training records and training programs are up to the standard that they've set, then you'll be certified in their eyes. And I'll highlight how that's important later. So some of the more common ones, there's so many standards, but firefighter 1 and 2, which is 1001, 1 and 2, that's the most common ones. So you'll see on the screen there, I'm only going to highlight a few of them. So some of the skills that you'd learn in firefighter 1 and 2 are your PPE, so your SCBA, bunker gear, ropes and knots, ground ladders, hose streams, ventilation, water supply, all the stuff that we'd use on a regular basis, auto extrication. Firefighter 2 touches on much of the same as firefighter 1, but also goes a little deeper into some of the more technical parts of each of the things I just spoke about. So again, technical rescue, fire streams, fire control, cause and determination, and life and safety. So another one is fire apparatus, fire pump operator. That's a big one for us. It's a 2-part thing. You need a DZ license, but as well, you need to be able to properly operate and maneuver a fire apparatus, as well as the pump that's on board. Nfpa 1006, specialty rescue. In each of these disciplines you see on the screen there, you got water rescue, trench rescue, low angle, and these come in awareness, operations, and technician. And each level gets a little more intense and a little more responsibility. So they're, again, basic awareness is a basic understanding. Operations is more defined, more technical training involved, and a higher understanding of principles and techniques. And then a technician is proficient in advanced understanding of those principles and techniques. They're responsible for the carrying out the rescue on scene or the technical part of it, and lead on any rescue involving specific discipline. So if they're the certified member, it doesn't matter what rank you have. If you're not certified as that, you can't carry out the rescue. Hazmat response, that's a big one, especially in Elmira with Lanxess. Again, awareness, operations, there's one more to that, which is mission specific and technician. So missions specific would be like a Lanxess. So they have defined parameters, they know what's on board. Whereas a technician would be a train rolling through town, you have no idea what's on it, and they got to deal with that situation. Another big one, fire officer, chief officer qualifications. So this speaks to our supervisors within the fire service, and it has 4 levels. Level 1 and 2 being kind of boots on the ground, sort of more in the trenches with the men and women out on the fire scene. And fire officer 3 and 4 speaks more to the administration and the administration of the fire department and fire service. Fire inspection, investigation, and prevention. So 1031 and 33. Fire inspector is usually the proactive approach. So they're going to go around and try and identify problems before they happen. So, crowded electrical rooms, non-compliant fire systems, people aren't testing their stuff. They're going to identify that. Fire scene investigator is the reactive side of that. So they're going to find out what went wrong and obviously give feedback to the Ontario Fire Marshal and try and avoid that situation in the future. Fire and life safety educator. These are my kids' favorite guys. They come with lots of sparky stuff, but also they're setting up education so that people can avoid situations where they might need the fire department. This is actually, years ago, it was the 3 lines of defense were suppression, investigation, and education. It's now flipped, and it's education, prevention, and suppression. So they're trying to educate you, and then if we need to, we put it out. So again, fire behavior, human behavior during fire, which is unique in its own, and just a host of other things. So where do we stand as the Woolwich Fire Department? So you can see here by my chart, last time around, we grandfathered 47 of our members in 1 and 2, which is the basic firefighting. You'll see a 0 on 1002 there because they didn't offer it. 1021, 1021, so 1021-2, which is our fire officer 1 and 2, respectfully 34 and 26. And again, we got quite a bit of safety education and inspection. Eligible for legacy. So you see that I just got a start beside it there, just based on our current records. That's the amount of people in each of those disciplines that would be eligible for a legacy certification. And then NFPA certification is some of our full-time career staff in other departments that have received certifications or have gone out and done it on their own. What impact will this have on Woolwich? So some quick notes: financial impact, additional training hours for staff, course fees, additional equipment, training aids and programs, and additional full-time staff to help manage the required workload. So that's record keeping and facilitation. The time impact: additional training requirements will have time impact on volunteers. So we're asking more of them. Record keeping and curriculum development and maintenance. So because they're going to, if they ever come calling and do an audit, we need to keep good records. And just curriculum development and maintenance is just keeping current and staying with industry standards. Staffing impact: asking volunteers for additional time and commitment, more responsibility and expectations. Now that we're certifying them, we're going to have a different level of expectation. Recruitment and retention could be positive or negative. This may pull people in because we're offering something, a service to them that they can't otherwise have to pay quite a bit of money for, or it could deter them because of the time constraint. And higher job satisfaction. So they're actually getting something tangible that says they are qualified and they're craftsmen or crafts people in their profession. The burning questions. I had to. I'm sorry.
That was perfect. If you could stop sharing, I can see everyone on the screen. That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you for the presentations. While you're doing that,
Sorry.
I wonder, a lot of the qualifications that you talked about are sort of make sense to people, but I wonder if you could talk about the importance of specialty rescue for us here. And also you mentioned briefly the hazmat. I think those are two that are pretty important to us here that aren't sort of maybe intuitive.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Mayor. One specific specialty rescue that comes off the top of my head would be water and ice water rescue with 3 major rivers and any number of bodies of water within the township, being ponds. It could be something as simple as a pond on a farm or the reservoir just outside of Floridale. That takes hours and hours and hours of training and maintenance to be certified. You can be, again, it's awareness, operations, and technician level. To be technician is quite an undertaking. From what I understand, we do have about a dozen staff currently certified in that discipline, whether officially or not. I know they've taken the course, so they are qualified under Nfpa. I'm not sure if they're certified. That's one of the disciplines we certainly want to do. Just with that said, it will be at the council's grace to what we set our level of service to in our enabling bylaw. So if council doesn't see fit that we don't provide ice water rescue service, then it's something we don't need to certify in. Another one would be, again, grain silo bin rescue, which is very technical. I don't know if anybody's seen anybody go into a silo of grain, but they disappear pretty quick. It's like quicksand when you're a kid. You know, it is definitely a risk. And hazmat. So I know Lanxess has their own team, but it is a large undertaking to mitigate a situation such as a hazmat call, and it would take more skilled people to deal with that. And I'm of mind that better be looking at it than looking for it, right? So that's my thoughts on it. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. If we didn't have certification in that, what would the response be? How would we handle a situation like that if we didn't have anyone certified?
Well, we'd have to, sorry. Oh, sorry. Did you want to go, Chief?
Any of the disciplines that we choose not to be certified in, we would have to find a neighboring fire department that we can get into an agreement with for them to come up if they have it. We've done this for Wellesley already for ice and water rescue. They had an event up there. They have nobody that is certified, and we went over and helped them in that situation. So it'd just be the same idea.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Questions, Councillor Schatz?
Thank you. Through you to either the chief or deputy chief. I know Breslau is a fairly new fire department compared to the rest of them. What percentage, or maybe you can't answer the question, but what percentage of those would be grandfathered in or would be trained fully compared to the rest of the township?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Shantz. When grandfathering came out, Breslau didn't fit into the criteria for that. So they will fall into our legacy group. And I'm not sure exactly how many are fully certified out there, but I know there is a good number of their staff that are or are working towards that currently. So.
So if I could just follow up on that. So the legacy group, that would be ones that would require further training. And if you're not fully trained, can you continue to go on a call, or how does that work?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Shantz. Legacy are not the group that needs additional training. They're a group that, similar to grandfathering, they're going to get certain criteria if the proper training has been met through their past experiences, either work or training, that they're going to get the Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 certifications, but it's only a province-based only. It's just anybody who is new in the last 2 to 3 years that would require to actually go out and be certified. So our current recruit class is all writing Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, and the hazardous materials stuff this year. So I hope that helps you.
Okay, and if I could just have one final question, Mayor Shantz. So are we certified that we can do our own testing, or do we do the training and then somebody comes in and tests the individual?
Currently, through Madam Mayor to Councillor Shantz, currently we have to get for writing the test, we have a proctor internally that can come out and proctor those written exams. But to do the practical skill testing, currently we have to get somebody from another municipality to come in and do that. So the province will send someone to us basically free of charge to look after that event for us.
Okay, thank you.
So they would send someone in, but we could do it here. We don't have to send our firefighters outside of the region to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Madam Mayor. So when we do it, we're doing the written test actually Thursday night this week for Firefighter 1. They do it in St. Jacobs upstairs. And they will send someone to come in when they do the practical testing, and we'll do it in St. Jacobs as well, because we have the training house down there. So it fits quite well for what we need to do. Yeah, they send somebody in for us. So.
Okay, super. Thank you. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you. To either one of you, is it reasonable to assume that the better trained our volunteers are, the more apt they are to leave and go to a full-time department?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Martin. I suppose if you look at it that way, yes. A saying I kind of like is, what if you don't train them and they stay? So it's kind of a catch-22. And myself and Chief Aldis have been in discussions about this, about people leaving and going to another place. I think if you provide someone value, they're going to make every best effort, or their best effort, to continue to stay with the organization that kind of serve them. And that's what the chief and I are trying to do, is provide these volunteers with some value for their time, and outside of the nominal consideration, obviously, but you know, To answer your question, if you train them and they stay, then great. If they train them and they go, then they're probably going anyway. So.
Okay, anyone else? Counselor Merlehan?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Shantz, to, I guess, Chief Aldis. In the presentation and I guess your introduction, it seems like there was an ask for a full-time employee. You mentioned that 20 extra people this past year have taken up the training, which is why you're asking for another full-time staffer to look after that. Can you explain what the duties are? I guess they looked after certification and record keeping. I'm just wondering if you can talk more about the specific job that you're asking for and when you would be looking for that.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Merlin. It's just going through this, we found out that it's not as easy as what the province has led us to believe it is. In the amount of time that it's taken to look after our recruit class, like I said, it's a recruit class of 18 people, which started in January and goes to the end of November. And that's teaching that time, making all that happen, making everything look after. Looking after, making sure we can schedule everyone in to do what they have to do, look after the arranging for our test people to come in, arranging for the tests and everything. It takes time. It may not necessarily be an extra person. It's just that it's going to take more time. It takes more money. It takes more time, I guess, for someone to do that. And it's hard for someone to do it on a part-time level right now. So one of the considerations we're looking at is a full-time training officer. There's been other municipalities that have put out for that currently. A lot of volunteers are finding out that it's a lot more work than what can be done basically off the side of a desk. So we're kind of looking that way right now. It's not necessarily a complete ask because that'll come up if we decide to, it'll come up in budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Shantz?
Yeah, thank you. That just triggered a question then. So is that something that we could work with the neighboring municipalities on and have one person for two municipalities? Is that the option that could save us some dollars and offer the service?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Shantz, it is an option. Currently, we're working with our neighboring municipalities on joint training, and we're trying to see where that goes. And it's something that we're working on. We're having meetings about it constantly with our neighboring townships on training. So that's one of the things we have talked about, but not 100% sure where that will go with everybody because they're all looking at the exact same problem, right?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I would encourage you to continue that road, at least until we need a full-time person 100% of the time.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands unless someone wants to put their hand up real quick. No. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation and the information. I appreciate you coming in, and it's kind of nice to start to see a few more people in the office and have to kind of learn where to look for things. So thanks very much. Next, we have a delegation. And before we begin, I have a whole host of things to read here, but we only have one delegation, and I think, Chuck, you've delegated before, so I'll just remind you to turn your video and microphone off until you're ready to speak, which is going to be in a moment. You have 7 minutes, and when you're finished, you can turn your microphone and camera off, but we'll ask for questions before you do that. So our delegation this evening is Chuck Martin, Director of SBE Limited Partnership, or Woolwich Bioen as we know it, for a gas plant update. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz.
Sorry, I also
Councillor.
understand Paul Taylor is here with you to answer questions. Is that? That's in my notes.
That's correct. Paul is listening in, and depending on the questions, he will chime in because he's a little more intimately aware of the details.
Go ahead.
So anyway, Mayor Shaw's councilors, thank you for letting us address you today. The reason for talking to you is sort of two parts. One, to let you know a few things that have happened in the past year or two, and a few things that we hope to achieve in the next year or two. So a little bit of history. We received from the Ontario Power Authority a feed-in tariff contract in 2010. We received our renewable energy approval from the Ministry of Environment in 2012. And we started commercial operations in 2014 for the biogas plant up in the north corner of Elmira. And that's 8 years of operations, largely without the feared negative impacts that concerned community people had. I think it's gone better than expected, and yeah, didn't result in some of the feared impacts that they envisioned. Last year, the assets of Woolwich Bioen were sold to an entity called SBE Limited Partnership. Woolwich Bioen continues to operate the plant, and it's same people, same employees, no change in the operators. SBE Limited Partnership is majority owned by a part of the Skyline Group. And the Skyline Group owns real estate properties and renewable energy assets in Elmira and throughout southwestern Ontario. Skyline SBE Limited Partnership also, they recently purchased a biogas plant similar in size to Elmira in Lethbridge, Alberta. And they've sort of added that to the portfolio. And SBE Limited Partnership is looking to expand, further pursue other opportunities in the biogas business. That sort of brings us to where we are. Over the past few years, also, there have been a number of provincial mandates to divert waste from landfill. That includes organics. And included in that is a mandate for larger municipalities to increase their organics diversion from 50% to 75%. And that has triggered a lot of interest in anaerobic digestion or biogas. Also over this time period, there have been very few, if any, new electricity contracts. That's what we do. We currently make biogas and use it to produce electricity. And the trend has been to move to renewable natural gas, which is just biogas cleaned up so it can be put into a natural gas pipeline. In fact, most municipalities in putting out tenders for their green bin material, their organics, are now requiring that RNG, renewable natural gas, be the end product as opposed to electricity. So it's being required. The reason for that is RNG has a better carbon footprint than other options like making electricity or composting. So there's quite a need for biogas capacity in the province. It exists now, and there's more need coming over the next few years as this waste diversion mandate deadline approaches. So what we're here to tell you about going forward is that SBE is preparing an application to essentially double the size of the Elmira facility. The main focus is on producing SSO or green bin material from the municipalities. So it's to address this need for biogas capacity in the province. Side benefits are over 10 years, technology has changed. So we would be looking at improving our process, updating our DPAC, or the ability to get the contraries or contaminants out of the organics before we process it. All of those things have, technology has advanced quite a bit over the past 10 years. The other would be odor control. So we would improve, although our biofilters have worked well for the 8 years of operations, we would be looking at some new technologies that have proven to work better elsewhere. So it would be no worse than what we have, and certainly somewhat better. One of the big concerns in the past has always been trucking and transportation. So yes, if we double the size of our facility, there will be twice as many trucks coming in. We are not asking for an increase in the total number of trucks. We've left that's 80 trucks per day, and we're leaving that at 80 trucks. We currently receive 11 or 12 trucks a day is the average. We have to record that. And there's more or less half those trucks are coming in and half bringing, organic waste in, and the other half are taking digestate out to local farms. So yes, the numbers will increase by about 11 to 12 trucks per day. And that compares to about 450 heavy trucks that go through the Church Street Arthur intersection on a daily basis. So it's, as much as it is increased truck traffic, it's nothing compared to the number of heavy trucks going through the downtown at this time. So we're actively preparing an application for the Ministry of Environment. The Township, Woolwich, will get copy of the application along with a notice. There'll be notice goes out to the neighbors. This is the normal process. And then there's a consultation process, municipality, public, Aboriginal consultation. Basically, our hope was to give you a heads up before this got out, so you weren't blindsided by citizens. There's risk. In the past, it was contentious. There's a risk that this will be contentious again. And so we wanted you to be aware and hopefully draw any concerns to our attention so we can address them sooner rather than later. And so that you're ready to deal with the application, and last of all, to wish you a happy Canada Day. There, 9 seconds is left.
Thank you. Great timing. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the heads up. And I think you hit the nail on the head that I think the concern is going to be trucking. But I will ask council if they have any questions for you. Councillor Shantz, McMillan, and Murrahan.
Thank you, through you to Mr. Martin. I find it interesting that you say that they want to put it back into natural gas and not electricity, because I hear there's rumblings that in the future they're trying to eliminate natural gas. Can you comment on that? I know that's probably nothing to do with your business, but you obviously got the background for it. Just wondering if you could comment.
Yes, that has to do with call it the carbon intensity, the carbon score. So, and I disagree with how they do it, so I'll be upfront about that. But making electricity, we only get 20% of our carbon credit allowed because we're displacing electricity, and 80% of Ontario's electricity is hydro or nuclear with no carbon load. My argument is when we make electricity, we displace the natural gas plants or the coal plants in the US who buy us our electricity when we have too much. They don't shut down the nuclear plant when we start running. Natural gas, RNG, any RNG we displace is a straight carbon reduction, and it's about 7 times greater carbon score than making electricity under the current regulations.
So one more question. So is that pumped out of your location then, or will it be pumped out of your location in the future, or is it trucked out?
Yeah, it would be pumped. We make, when we make electricity, we burn the biogas in its raw form. And to put it into the pipeline, we have to clean it up to pipeline standard, which is removing things. There's a small level of sulfur and CO2. We have to remove that to put the gas into the pipeline, and then it just goes through the pipeline to the nearest users. There's an advantage being close to users. When we did a test run on our generators, in a matter of 15 to 20 minutes, we can drain the entire pipeline coming to our plant of pressure. And so the amount of gas we make is fairly substantial. So it's good for us to be near bigger users such as the pet food plant and the chemical plant.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, Mayor Shonts, through you. Thank you for the presentation. I think I heard you say that biogas was either more environmentally friendly, or I think you might have said it was less carbon intensive than composting for green bin materials. Can you remind us what you said there? Because I can't recall exactly what you said. And then could you explain that if I did hear that correctly?
Yep, that is correct. And EPA in the US has a very good article on that. But the gist of it is we bring the organics in, we harvest all the energy, basically carbon, and then we send it out as fertilizer, which is nitrogen and phosphorus. We try and take all the carbon out of it. Whereas if you compost, one of the byproducts of composting is CO2. And the fiber that remains, that goes out with the compost, eventually breaks down and releases CO2. And but the big difference is we harvest the energy, composting does not.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a little counterintuitive that we think we don't realize how carbon intensive compost is. And I appreciate the opportunity to hear that again. Thank you.
Another way to look at it is we produce, I put it this way, the amount of energy we consume when we make our electricity to run the entire plant, all the mixing and grinding, etc., is about 5% of our electricity revenue. So it's a small part. We produce much more electricity than we consume.
Thank you.
Councillor Morahan?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Chuck. Now, Councillor Shantz had kind of was going down the way I was looking with the biofuel, and so I'll just take a different aspect of it. I'm wondering the process. Is there an additional process? I mean, you said there's some filtering out of things, but is there a process that adds additional smell? And I'm wondering if there's the other plants that have converted and done the process that you're talking about, the conversion going to, is if there's an example somewhere that you've seen where the smell has been reduced, and any additional processes that make smell are also not going to be detectable to the public.
Yeah, I can't answer that question other than the gas upgrading facility itself will require an approval from the Ministry of Environment. And so odor and noise studies will be done on that component of the facility as well, just as it is with our engines right now that make electricity. They have a discharge and they're all part of that study. So the answer is, I don't believe there's any concerns on that front. I'm not aware of it. It's certainly not anything I've heard in our discussions. But it is part of the application and approval process with certainty.
Okay. And as to the pipeline that you're talking about, just from the discussion, it sounds like your pipeline is already here, active, and just to the pet plant and the chemical plant. Will just those two properties use all of this extra fuel that you're going to be creating with the double-sized plant?
That is unlikely. The gas line is not there, so we will have to work with Enbridge, the local gas utility, and they will have to install a much larger line that goes up towards the Floridale Dam, if you want to say. The connection on Arthur Street North is not at all big enough. So, and that involves, at this time, that involves a public process, approval process, but it would be bringing in a much larger diameter line.
Okay, and if it's okay, I have a couple more questions. With the electrical contract that you have, will that be surrendered at some point, or will you continue to make a little bit of electricity still?
That remains to be seen. We have a little less than 12 years remaining on our feed-in tariff contract. This is just industry stuff. There has been some talk in the industry of, what do they call it? Amend and extend. So there's been talk of lowering the contract price, but making it for a longer period of time.
Okay. And then, oh, sorry, that's just my final question was about the trucking, which I suspect will probably be the most contentious part of this. Would you consider looking at, off hours and of trucking? I know the plant kind of runs itself and trucks can come in and out. I'm just wondering to alleviate some of the additional trucking and potential grief.
Yeah. Two parts to that response. The first is, as I understand it, the region is undertaking the first steps in the environmental assessment regarding a bypass, which would alleviate a lot of these concerns in time. And the other is our current approval restricts the receiving hours of our trucks. So
Okay.
we are limited to correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I believe it's from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening. And then after that, we have limits on trucks coming in, and that limits our ability to process at night.
Okay.
So part of our expansion would give us the ability to extend our call it inside processing hours, but we're not asking for any change in the trucking.
Councillor Redicott.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Mr. Martin. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. Also, when will the public process begin, do you think, about informing the local residents of the increased trucking and about odor, and just so that we know when to expect some feedback from the residents? Thank you.
Yeah, Paul would be able to better tell you that, but I expect that sometime in the next, say, 2 months, we will have the application ready, and then we have to send notice and copies to the township, and then we have to send notice to the neighbors. But we're talking sometime in the next 2 or 3 months, but not next week.
Okay, thanks very much. It's good general idea.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, Chuck, for bringing this to our attention. I would certainly encourage you to participate in that EA for the bypass when when the opportunity arises. I think we're going to need to make sure the region understands why we need the bypass sooner than later, because right now, as it sits right now, the master plan shows that after 2041, which is way too far in the future in my mind. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, we will participate in the EA.
Okay, awesome. We have another report here. If you're looking at an agenda, it was removed by staff because the property in question is a property of interest, but not formally listed on the property on the Heritage Registry. So we've taken that off of the agenda. There's no unfinished business. We do have a couple of items on the consent agenda. Does anyone want to discuss anything on there? Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, Mayor Shantz, I'll move approval, but I was hoping I could speak to it as well.
Okay, thank you, and go ahead. I
just wanted to
I'll
thank.
ask for a seconder. And
Yes.
go ahead. Is there a seconder? Councillor Shantz. Okay, go ahead, Councillor McMillan.
I just wanted to thank council for last week. I was chairing the meeting, so didn't get to participate, but I wanted to thank them for the decision to defer the bylaw, not limiting live music. this summer. I know that there are some businesses that will really help. So I just wanted to thank council for that decision that was made on the committee of the whole meeting last week.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of the consent agenda? And that is carried. Thank you. Staff reports and memos. We will start with celebration of Canada Day 2022, and I will call on Manager of Recreation Jen Horndal and Community Programs and Inclusion Coordinator Marie Malcolm. And welcome. Look forward to hearing all about Canada Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. This memo has been prepared to give Council an overview of the Township of Woolwich Canada Day celebrations occurring this Friday, July 1st. As we know, the Canada Day celebrations are growing and starting this year, we will be moving the event from Gore Park in Elmira to the Woolwich Memorial Center. Festivities are positioned to be outdoors. However, with weather, it may be indoors if raining. Again, this location change has been mainly to assist with the growth of the celebration. And this location will provide optimal benefits, providing ample parking, adequate washroom facilities, and continue to assist with the growth of our festivities in future years. Township of Woolwich staff have planned a fun-filled afternoon for all ages between the hours of 12 to 4 p.m., including free public swims sponsored by Good Auto Parts and the Township of Woolwich Council, live entertainment and activities. Summer camp staff will be handing out freezies, and food trucks will be present to purchase for lunch or an early supper. In addition, Canada Day is also an opportunity to continue to learn, build awareness, and celebrate Indigenous culture. We encourage residents to thoughtfully examine what it means to be Canadian and understand the country's Indigenous roots and that the racism that still exists today. Educational resources can be found on our Township website on the event page, and we will also have a booth present during the event. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Council? Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you for all the work you've put into organizing this. It's going to be wonderful to be able to celebrate together again. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be there that day, but I wish all the residents a wonderful day and hope that they come and partake. We have some family events that have been pre-planned, so unfortunately I won't be there. So thank you very much for the presentation and all the best. I hope you have a successful day and that lots of people come out and join you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thanks. Township Park Property Vandalism, Manager of Operations and Projects, Thomas Ben. Sorry, Thomas. I don't know what accent I was putting on that one.
Thanks. Good evening, Council, and through you, Mayor, Shantz to Council. So RCS has before you an unfortunate memo this evening just with regards to vandalism of township properties, specifically our park facilities, and also then the efforts that we're taking and working with Waterloo Regional Police Services to mitigate the ongoing concerns. So beginning during the pandemic in 2020, the department began experiencing ongoing vandalism of our park field houses in washrooms, specifically and most notably in Breslau Memorial Park, Lions, and Bolunder Parks in Elmira. To date, in 2022 alone, we have incurred damages in the amount of $8,000 for vandalism, specifically at Lions Park and Breslau Memorial Park Fieldhouse. And dealing with vandalism in Breslau has unfortunately become a weekly routine for staff. So in an effort to mitigate these issues, township staff have implemented a few operational changes, such as altering the hours of our washroom facilities to close at dark, including enhancing our bylaw presence in the evening hours in Breslau and some of our other parks. And then we're also working with the Waterloo Regional Police Services to review Breslau Memorial Park, specifically completing a CEPTED audit, which stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. So that includes things such as, simple things such as chaining benches to a post or installing better lighting, cameras, that sort of thing. So following that analysis, we're hoping to implement some minor budget impact changes. And then if there's anything major, we'll bring that back to council as a part of 2023 budget deliberations. And then finally, our communications staff will be working with police service as well too, to get some messaging out to the public, and then possibly connect with some of the school boards as well too. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions council may have.
Okay, thank you. Very disappointing to have this report, and that people involved realize that it's the taxpayers that have to pay for this, and it's part of the community that we want to provide amenities for, and I just find it really disappointing that we need a report like this. But any questions from council? Councillor Shantz.
Thank you, through you to Thomas. I see in the report about cameras being installed, a possibility, and $10,000. Is that for the 2 locations, or is that just for 1 location?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, Councillor Shantz, that would be for both locations. So it's $5,000 each for 2 cameras. It was recommended by the Waterloo Regional Police Services, specifically with the Breslau location, because that's the site that we went to. But there are a number of other things that we can probably do in the meantime. Things such as improving lighting. Unfortunately, there's also some very large stature trees and bushes that, as much as we wouldn't want to remove those, those are things that block sight lines from the parking lot into the pavilion and into the field house. So yeah, those are some things we want to consider first, and we'll go through the audit and then see if cameras are something that we think will help, and then yeah.
Okay, and yeah, so the reason I asked that is, I guess at some point, we've already spent $8,000, and if we can't mitigate it by doing environmental upgrades or whatever, it might be worthwhile to look at that cost. And I'm assuming then you'll bring that to council at that point. We won't wait till 2023 budget deliberations if this continues.
Yes. So through you, Mayor Shantz, again to Councillor Shantz. So if council would like to provide some direction with regards to that, and just approval for staff to move forward with cameras if our efforts in implementing other environmental changes don't work, that would be welcomed by staff, and I think that we could accommodate it within our operating budgets as well too.
If I could, I would like to see us do that if that's going to solve the problem, or possibly solve the problem before we start spending a lot of dollars on repairs. But I think we should stage it in like you're suggesting, and maybe at that point you could bring it to council if it looks like it's going to be needed, and then we can make that decision then, rather than make it now and just a blanket decision.
Thank you. Just a reminder that we don't meet again until August. Councillor Merlehan.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Thomas. I guess I start with that vandalism and what's been going on at these 2 particular parks isn't necessarily just a council or a staff problem. This is a whole community problem. The community needs to get involved, speak to your children that are going out at night and coming home late and asking what they're doing. And when you see something, report it. I'm wondering, Thomas, what has staff done to initiate, some sort of reporting mechanism just for regular citizens to, when they're out for a walk and they see, things going on in a park, that they can notify authorities that, something's not right in Lions Park or Breslau Memorial.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Merlehan. So what I think we could ask of the public, and what's typically been happening, is that they're reporting the incidents to the township, to our department. I actually received one this morning with regards to Breslau. So, and then we have our avenue in working with Waterloo Regional Police Services to then report it through. We do typically catch most items the day after or the day of even. But if there are any issues, the public's welcome to call our customer service line, which is 519-669-7000, and then report that, and then we can go out and get pictures and that sort of thing and report appropriately.
Okay, I was thinking of, reporting on particular people that are doing this. So I'm wondering if you could, with speaking with the police services, whether or not there's a demographic that is consistently responsible for the vandalism that's occurring.
So I think that through you, Marshal, to Councillor Merlihan, I think our bylaw services staff would have a better sense of this because they are completing the park patrols in the evening. I think from what I understand in Breslau specifically, it's the younger crowd, high school students, that sort of thing, hanging out at the basketball courts and the tennis courts there in that area of the field house and the concession. If people notice anything, they're I don't know if it's a reporting to likely not bylaw at this point, just because of the limited service that we have. But Jeff, I don't know if you can add to that on my behalf. Thanks.
Go ahead, Clerk Smith.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Sean. So we have taken 2 initiatives. So we are looking at doing some more public education around this matter. And as Mr. Vanderhoff said, we are, bylaw is working closely with both the Parks Department and police to report anything. But of course, as Councillor Merlihan said, if the public does see something, they can report it to the police non-emergency line.
Okay, would someone like to give that number for anyone who happens to be listening? Clerk Smith, do you want to do that?
Yes, through Mayor Sean. Sorry, I just had to look it up. It's 519-570-9777.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Councillor Martin, was that a hand or no? Okay, anyone else? Okay, Councillor Shantz, go ahead.
Just circling back, were you suggesting that we should allow staff to install cameras since we're not meeting till the August again, or what was your suggestion then?
If that's council's wish, I just wanted to remind you that we won't be together again till mid-August, I think it is. So if we want to give staff that authority, today would be the day to do that.
I would make that a motion.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Martin. Excuse me. Any further discussion? Councillor Merlihan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you to, I guess, either Clerk Smith or Thomas. I'm wondering if you could talk about other municipalities with video surveillance in their parks. And I guess I would see if any of the township municipalities have ventured there. I'm guessing Kitchener and Cambridge and those larger centers would have that type of surveillance. But maybe could you speak to how that operates?
Yeah. Thomas?
Yeah, I can start, and then Clerk Smith can jump in if need be. Through your Marshals, Councillor Merlihan. In speaking with the police, the only location that they were actually aware of that had cameras was Victoria Park in Kitchener. Through the SEPTED audit, we would identify where to place them, that sort of thing. And then we also have our security camera policy. I'm not sure that's exactly what it's called, but which speaks to signage, that sort of thing that would need to go up. And then obviously we would make sure that they're obviously on the outside of the building, that sort of thing, not in any sensitive areas.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, Clerk Smith, do you have anything to add? No. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for the report. Our next report is on affordable housing, and I will call on Director of Development Services, Deanne Fries. Welcome.
Thank you. This report is more of an update report. So taking the direction back from council from December 2021, we've been working with the region and other municipalities in the region as a combined group to develop some incentive program collectively. So something that would run between all the different municipalities and the region as well. So we can provide a full suite of affordable housing incentive programs. So we're looking at a variety of different types of incentive programs, including policies and regulations, financial programs such as the TIG application, approval process enhancements for affordable developments, and also what legal mechanisms we have as well. So this report is just to ask council for direction to continue working on this project and to give you an update of just what we're doing with this intermunicipal working group. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Councillor, do you have questions for Ms. Fries about the affordable housing program? Councillor McMillan, go ahead, and then Councillor Merlihan.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. I don't know if this is a question or ends up just being a comment. I think I saw recently somebody who's in affordable housing comment that rather than trying to get development projects where they'll put 10 or 20% of the units and make them affordable, what municipalities should be doing is asking for a donation to affordable housing projects in a similar amount. And the reason given was a group like Meadow Homes that builds affordable housing complexes can take a cash donation and they can turn it into grants that ends up multiplying the impact of that money. So rather than, X amount of dollars that is put into affordable units inside a larger development, you give that X amount of dollars to Meadow Martin and they can multiply it by 10 through grants from provincial and federal governments. And I just wondered if that was something new that I had heard. I had always been of the mind that having embedded affordable units was better because then you don't end up with buildings that are, subsidized buildings that maybe don't get kept up. But this was an interesting thought that I heard, and I was wondering if that's been talked about or if that's something that maybe we could take forward.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So that is one of the things that we are considering that would be called what we've been referring to as affordable housing contributions. So we have to figure out what that right amount is and then have the policy framework behind it to request that amount. So then any development that is not directly providing affordable housing, we can ask for those cash contributions. Those go into a reserve fund, and then we're able to apply them in other spots or through township initiatives as well. So it is one of the programs that we are looking at jointly with the other municipalities to figure out what is that correct amount, what is the amount that's appropriate as an alternative to providing actual units.
Excellent, thank you.
I think that amount would be very important to be adequate or more. Councillor Merlihan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Ms. Fries. I'm just wondering, I didn't see any of this in the report, but as some further suggestions, looking at, banning like Airbnb type rental properties to create, more opportunities here for people to actually rent on a longer term basis. Policies that encourage more people to convert to basement apartments, encouraging tiny homes on people's properties. And in the case in Elmira, like vacant lands that are already zoned for apartment buildings in subdivisions that have been long ago approved, somehow, forcing those developments to happen. Because just in Elmira, if you set up a couple of apartments right away, it would certainly make an impact on rents elsewhere in town, as there isn't really any competition for because of the low rental vacancy. Any of those policies being talked about as part of your initiative here with other municipalities?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I would say not directly, because this group works specifically to increase affordable units, so not necessarily all types of rental units. So there's provincial direction for things like tiny homes and basements apartments to allow them as of right, and those will be included in our updated official plan. They're already included now in our current official plan, and they will help to increase rental and alternative forms of housing, but won't necessarily be affordable housing. So this report and this particular working group is looking particularly at developing more affordable units and getting those units to develop. Some of the region work that they had done in the past when secondary suites were first being established did provide incentives for those secondary suites to be affordable. And if they were under a certain rent, they could get some of their renovation costs back. So there are things that can be combined. They're just not always directly related, if that kind of makes sense there as well. And then as far as the Airbnb banning, no, again, not a part of this report. The interpretation that is taken by most municipalities is that Airbnbs are rental units, therefore a shorter term, but they're very hard to figure out how long people are renting for, and to put a limitation on that to ensure that they're not taking up the rental units. So it's a difficult thing to tackle, but it's still on, it's still on everyone's mind, kind of in the back of their mind, I would say more so. Yeah, I think that answers your question. I can't really answer the last question about the timing for those type of developments to occur. It can be included in development agreements if they're part of a larger subdivision for certain sites to develop prior to other sites and things like that. So we can try to work those in the future as well.
Okay, so forcing I guess developers who have, really lots of land still to develop in Elmira, forcing them to build the apartment that, they're zoned and approved a long time ago to actually build is out of all municipal hands?
Yeah, it would depend. Sorry, again, through you, Madam Mayor. It would depend again whether it's tied to a broader development or it's a standalone development. If it's a standalone development that's separate from that site, then we have to process it within the Planning Act timeframes, and we don't have any ability to force them on another site to build something first. So if it's tied all together in the same development, then we have a little bit more control through some legal mechanisms.
Okay, thank you.
I think the other thing we have to remember is that an apartment building requires someone to manage it. And so it's a little bit, a developer doesn't necessarily manage an apartment building once it's built. So we need the appropriate person or group to come forward to do that. Councillor Shantz, go ahead.
Thank you, through you to Ms. Fries. So are we trying to find a common ground across the whole town or the whole region? Or are we just trying to come up with different ideas that we can use in our own township? What are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I think that we want to find a suite of incentives that are appropriate for our township, for Woolwich. But this group is looking at the whole broader suite to look at what are the options that are out there. And then we'll figure out what's most appropriate for our township. Also, we want to look at opportunities where we can partner with the region. So things like development charges, where they have a higher level development charges. We have a municipal level development charges where we can provide those charges from both levels. Also things like programs like TIGs, you can have them at both regional levels and municipal levels. So trying to develop those partnerships as well in the multiple tiers. And then also looking at what other municipalities are doing, what's working, and what is that full suite of options that we have that we can bring forward.
And then adding to that, then the DC charges, what about the school boards? What about them coming to the party? Because it could benefit them as well, because typically that, have children involved in a lot of cases. So I'm wondering if they could be approached and see if they would, waive their DC charges as well.
So through you, Madam Mayor. So the school boards are not part of this group, but I will bring that back to the group to see if there's an option to have that discussion again and about development charges and bring them back to the table.
Thank you.
Whoops, press it the right way. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. The other thing, and it isn't really part of this, is affordable housing. But I'm very aware of the continuum of housing and the importance for that. And I did have a discussion with someone who is a senior and was looking for a senior's condo to move out of their single family home, and couldn't find anything in the township. So I think there's always a danger in swinging, to a problem and looking at only one piece of it. And I think we need to remember that whole continuum, although the affordable piece is definitely needing attention. So thank you. Oh, you wanted a motion on that, I think, right? To receive the report. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Redekop, seconded by Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks for your work on this. Next, we have a tender award for 2 tandem snowplow vehicles. And, snow will be here before we know it. Mr. Poupet.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, and through you to members of council. Before council this evening is a request to purchase 2 tandem snowplows for upcoming winter season. The costs, as seems to be a common theme this year, are over budget, and obviously timing is a problem. Used to be able to pay for something a little more and you'd get it quicker. It seems to be that you pay more and you wait longer. Just seems to be the nature of the industry when you're dealing with vehicles nowadays. We only received 1 bid. We're very familiar with Team Truck Center and we're very comfortable with purchasing the vehicle. I think it's important to note that of that timing and why we're seeking the ask here is that if we delay, it obviously pushes delivery times. Everybody's in a queue at the moment. The benefit that we're seeing though is in the auctioning of vehicles. There's a premium being paid on used vehicles. So it's tough to anticipate what we think we will return. But if you look at the cost here and the $150,000 shortfall in the budget, that is likely to be much less than that. But I don't want to speculate on that. It's just what we've been seeing, and even looking at purchasing used vehicles, they are incredibly high. If anybody's been looking for one, so I will add that they are 2-way plows. I made sure of that before coming to council. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was going to say here, but they are both 2-way plows, and we are going to be keeping the older vehicle. We have found that it is much more reliable than the International. We will send the International to auction. So with that, I would attempt to answer any questions council may have.
Questions, Councillor Martin.
Not as much a question. You said that you want to get these for the upcoming season. You won't get these trucks for a year and a half.
My apologies. You're absolutely correct.
If then, I'm certainly glad that you've finally gone to 2-way plows. I think the last one you had said as a 2-way plow, I'm not sure, but there's so much more you can do with them. You can keep snow out of somebody's driveway. You can clean up dead ends. When you're at the end of a street, you don't leave that triangle in the middle. It's just all kinds of things, and they plow well. But my question is, what kind of wing are you putting on them?
Oh, through Mayor Shantz to Councilor Martin, I do not know. I do not have that information. You keep getting me, and I need to do better when I bring these reports forward, is what you've shown me. So good question.
With the last truck, I told you to put on a tuck-away wing.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem that anybody knows what that is. The problem we have in Conestoga, and you're well aware of it, we spend a lot of money on siding and everything else to refurbish that building. But we smashed doorways, I think, 4 times. They're still not fixed from last winter. And why? Because the doorway is 1 inch wider than the truck. So when you go there at 4 o'clock in the morning, you got to be pretty doggone good to get that truck out without hitting something, particularly if the wings sagged a little bit, in which they do. A tuck-away wing comes right tight against the truck, right under the mirror. It's got one cylinder that draws it in, and it'll narrow that truck, I would guess, by at least 1.5 feet. And that's why I'm saying we need to have a couple trucks, if you're going to store them in Conestoga, with tuck-away wings, so we quit smashing the doors. That's my point.
Point taken.
Everybody understand that?
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any other questions? Councillor Shantz.
I just have to comment on Councillor Martin's comments and say that I'm disappointed that I'm not traveling with him, because we used to talk about this every time we had one come to council. So yeah, I'm not able to to have that discussion with him because we're not traveling together these times. But I'll move the motion.
Thank you. Well, you could come into the office, you know. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Martin, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a property acquisition, 22 Mockingbird Drive, and I'll call on Mr. Vanderhoff. Thomas?
I should start by correcting the phone number that I gave out for the public to call with regards to vandalism, because it was a staff person's phone number, and one of my staff were quick to text me. So that number is 519-514-7000. That's the number that the public can call. Anyways.
Thank you.
Moving on to 22 Mockingbird. So this report is with regards to the property located at 22 Mockingbird Drive, Elmira in Park Manor Park. Staff are recommending acquisition of the property pending regional council approval, and also that direction be provided to staff to report back to council during 2023 budget deliberations for plans of the property. 22 Mockingbird, previously a daycare operated by the Region of Waterloo, is a 6,700 square foot facility that was constructed in 1975 on 0.94 acres of land. The property is located as an island within the surrounding township property, and the building has not been in use since December of 2016. As a part of the Region of Waterloo's disposition process, region staff approached the township to gauge interest in 2019. And following these meetings, the township engaged MTE consultants to complete a building condition analysis of the facility, which has identified $438,000 in capital repairs required to be completed in the next 9 years. And I should say that study again was completed in 2019, so those numbers are likely inflated. Some of that work included a roof and HVAC equipment replacements because it hasn't been in use, like I said, since 2016. Due to the location of the property and potential use, staff are recommending the acquisition, and plans for the property include demolition of the facility and replacement with a township storage facility and additional parking for the park. So council will recall the demolition of the site was approved through 2022 budget deliberations. Staff intend to carry forward this funding and propose additional funding for a facility pending council approval in 2023. So in order to capitalize on some efficiencies and learning from the Maryhill project, staff would prefer to complete both of these scopes of work as one single capital project. That way we would only be required to have one contractor complete the work. The Recreation and Community Services Department has rented storage space in Elmira at a cost of approximately $10,000 annually, and that's $2022 for the past 10 years. As the township continues to acquire additional parkland and facilities and in turn additional equipment, the department has outgrown this space. And we've resorted to kind of storing equipment everywhere within our park field houses, at the old fire station in Breslau, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, in our summer months, we store all of our equipment out back the Woolwich Memorial Center, and we've run into some issues with vandalism, theft attempts, that sort of thing with regards to that property. Additionally, parking is extremely limited at the site, and adding parking capacity will better serve our user groups, including Woolwich Youth Soccer, which plays the majority of their games out of that site, as well as the Woolwich Lawn Bowling Club as well. So there has been a review of the property to consider alternative uses to the above plans, including affordable housing and use by third parties. However, due to the characteristics of the property, lack of parking and capital investment that's required to bring the property up to a usable state, staff have provided the recommendation in the report. And then finally, staff have worked at the Region of Waterloo as well too to come to an agreeable purchase and sale agreement, which is attached to the report. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Okay. Thank you. I believe this did come to regional council, so I think it has been declared surplus, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Are there any questions, Councillor Shantz?
Thank you, through you to Thomas. I think it's a good plan, what you're thinking. The question I have is, with having that the storage facility for you, that's not very central to in the township. How do you see that working? I think like a place like Conestoga would be more central if you put a building up, would it not?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Shantz. So I guess we're looking at what property we have at this point, and right now we have through the summer months and for the last number of years now since the Woolwich Memorial Center has been built, and I think previous to that as well too, we've been operating out of the Woolwich Memorial Center. So I think maybe in an ideal world, Conestoga or somewhere more central would be a good option, but just the availability of this land and the $2, it's a $2 expense to purchase it is what's appealing.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we don't buy it. I'm suggesting maybe we should look at whether we want to put the facility there or not, because of the fact that it's at one end of the township and it's not very central. I don't know how big our property is in Conestoga, whether it would be large enough to do something like that or not. But just a comment.
That'll come back during budget. Councillor Merlehan?
Yeah, through you to Thomas. I have a couple of different questions. I guess the first one, I'll just, after Councillor Shantz's suggestion of Conestoga, I don't really feel like this is a very good location for a storage unit either, not just because of the location, centrally in the township, but because you're right in the middle of a residential area and right beside a grade school, and parks all around it. I understand from our first discussion about these storage, it's not just storage, but you were planning on having office, like people working out of that area as well. And when you look at just the property there, I mean, there isn't very much parking. We want to increase the parking. I'm not sure how big the building or storage or what it would look like or how it would fit into that area, but I see the units that are used and how people drive into the yard to go pick up equipment and things like that, and I don't see that being a good fit beside a school when you got kids running around and you've got a community safety zone there and staff running in and out looking for new equipment. So I'm not really on board with making that a storage unit. It'd be nice to have something more in tune with the park and the neighborhood that residents could use. And I believe we are looking at there's an EA process going to happen at some point for finding a new location for the roads and all that. And I'm wondering if the current location by the dump there that the roads people use, if when that location is vacated, that could be something then taken over by parks. Has that discussion been had at all?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Merlehan. So yes, we are going through the EA process now, and that will come back in 2023 as well too, with a new council. We're intending to wait until we have the new council for that, and then this I guess recommendation for this property would come forward at that same time as well too. So we are working with infrastructure services to devise an appropriate plan. The intent is for the EA and for that facility that's going to come from that is possibly to shift a number of other staff groups as well too, our engineering office staff, our infrastructure services operations staff, and possibly our RCS staff as well too. Whereas this building, smaller in nature, similar to the facility that we have now, 3-4 times the size of that, just to house our equipment. and it would be used for additional storage as well. And with regards to the EA as well too, you know, that will be, there will be lots of discussion around that with council, just due to the likely price tag of that facility and acquiring property for that sort of thing. So I'm not certain what the forecast looks like for when that building will be constructed, whether it's 5 years out or 7 years out or 10 years out, that sort of thing. So, but I think my you know, in circling back, staff will bring back additional information and a recommendation as a part of next year's budget, and we can have a more fulsome discussion at that time.
Okay, thank you. My other question would be around the agreement itself with the region. I'm wondering, is this one different from other times the township, you know, purchases surplus land? There just seems to be a lot of stipulations of what the township can and mostly can't do with the property, and you know, not declaring it surplus ourselves, and it can only go to a not-for-profit group, things like that. Is this a standard one, or is this property different this time?
Through your Mayor Shantz, Councillor Millihan. It's a little bit different. We did have some negotiations with the region, and part of that was due to the fact that, you know, originally before they, I mentioned they approached us, but it was kind of mutual in that approach with regards to the property. Originally, they were looking to sell the property, so we wanted to kind of get in front of them before that happened to declare our interest. So as a result of that, there were some additional stipulations put into the purchase and sale agreement, such as they don't want us to turn around and sell it, and they want it to be intended for municipal uses only.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Councillor Martin, is that a hand?
Thank you. I was just going to ask Thomas if he can accommodate the $2 fee in his budget, or if I should leave this with the treasurer tonight.
Everything helps.
Just leave it, Marie.
Okay. We do have a motion. Would someone like a recommendation? Would someone like to move it? Councillor McMillan, second by Councillor Martin, with $1. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And finally, we have a report on the Breslau Memorial Park splash pad, the feasibility analysis, and Mr. Vanderhoff is staying on for that. I understand David Giacometti is here to answer questions as well.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to council. So following the committee of the whole meeting on January 24th and re-endorsement of the project by council, staff were directed to return following completion of an infrastructure feasibility analysis. So staff are happy to report that the splash pad can be accommodated at the proposed site utilizing nearby electrical and water service from the BCC and stormwater tie-in within close proximity in the park, actually. Additionally, staff have also verified the costing for the splash pad will likely fall in the range of what was previously reported, and staff anticipate a cost of approximately $300,000, which will be confirmed following the RFP. Staff have worked closely with the Breslau Community Fundraising Group and the Woolwich Recreational Foundation to come to appropriate agreements required to carry out the project and apply for grant funding. And then lastly, council had directed staff to complete further analysis for incorporating reuse of gray water into the project. We kind of, truthfully, there was a bit of a rush to get this report on before council so that the group could apply for some grant funding. So we haven't had a chance to do that up to this point, but that's something that we can look at. And it's staff's recommendation that if we move forward with that scope as a part of the project, that we take that on as the township. I would add in there that I've included in the report what our typical water consumption is. It is quite minimal compared to the output of the splash pad. So yeah, there would be some savings there, but they would not be significant by any means. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council? No questions. Councillor Merlian, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, I think the report said something like about $200 or something in savings on water for the gray water system. What would be just a ballpark of setting up a system that would capture that water?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, Councillor Merlehan, again, just a ballpark, but I would assume we would be at least $10,000.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I also think too that, looking at some of our, we've incorporated a cistern into the Maryhill Fire Station. And, those types of items are definitely things that we're going to consider, something we're considering through the EA process as well too for the joint works yard, so that we do have a water source to draw from.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, since David is with us, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, I'm sorry. I wonder if he can give us an update on the fundraising.
Hi. Yeah, sure. No problem. The pronunciation of my last name, just in case you're wondering, is Giacomatzi. And I don't expect anyone. It's always David G. Yeah, so fundraising efforts are well underway. We're at 55% of our goal at this point. We've received some good donations, couple larger ones that we still haven't finalized the press report with. So once we get those out, then you'll see those posted. Of that 55%, just a quick breakdown, just in case you're wondering, 7% is held in cash, 6% a grant, and 42% is currently in pledges.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
Are there other questions for either Thomas or David? Larry?
Just wondering if you checked with Mr. Martin, Councillor Martin, to see whether he's got his say in there.
Have not. It's a follow-up action for me, please.
You can do that offline. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any. There is a recommendation. Would someone like to, it's just to receive this report for information purposes and to, I guess, ensure that we're moving forward. Would someone like to move it? Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Merlehan. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, other business, mayor's report on regional matters. I want to let everyone know that we have a grand opening happening at the West Montrose Grand River Access Point, number 204 at the West Montrose Family Camp, and that is Wednesday, June 29th, from 3 until 7. It sounds like there's going to be some fun things to do, a little bit of a celebration. And so if you're able to, I encourage you to go. Last year, Councillor Shantz and David and I met, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, to talk about how we could solve the trespass issues in West Montrose. And Councillor Shantz had this brilliant idea to approach the West Montrose campground, and they were able to all come together and work something out. So we're very excited to see this happen. And I see an optional self-guided float. So if it's a hot day, that would be a great activity for you to take in. In terms of the region, we're in the middle of the land needs assessment, and there will be a meeting on Wednesday from, I believe it's from 1 until 5 or 1 until we're finished. A public meeting talking about the land needs assessment and how that is moving forward. So that's the big thing on our plate, along with, of course, working with our homeless population in the region. Right, that's right. We thank you. We also have got an extension for the pilot project for the commuter bus, the community bus in Elmira. That was granted for a year until 2023. And during that time, we are going to be meeting with the region and GRT to just discuss how we can best provide transportation, alternate transportation around our small towns. So the townships will all be meeting with GRT to look at that as an option. Thank you for that reminder. Any other reports from council? Okay, seeing none. Outstanding activity list. Anyone want to talk about that? Nothing on that. We have no notice of motion. I need a resolution that the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk be read a first, second, third time and finally passed, and that they be numbered as bylaw number 40-2022 to 43-2022, and that they be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. And you can see those bylaws on your agenda. Someone like to move that? Councillor Shant, second by Councillor Redekop. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I'm going to say have a good summer, and I hope you have some time to sort of relax and take in the good weather that we're going to have, right? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Since you're not going to be with us on July the 1st, if my memories can correct, it'd be appropriate to say happy birthday.
Thank you. And thank you for not counting. Okay. Motion to adjourn, to meet again in regular session on Monday, August 22nd, 2022. That's a lot of twos. Councillor McMillan, seconded by Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you also to all who participated or tuned into the meeting tonight on our YouTube live stream. I'll remind council to stay connected until we receive confirmation that the live stream has stopped. And I will say good night and have a great summer, everyone.